But I just wanted to talk to you all today a little bit about Prepare-Enrich and how we've been able to use the adoption and foster care version here at Lifeline. I stumbled upon the pre-adoption version, as it was called, a couple of years ago because, as a lot of you know, adoption is really difficult. And within that, sometimes what look like really solid marriages have a tendency to fall apart. And we experienced this with one of our families, and as I was looking for a way to kind of help them through, they had adopted a couple of older children and they were really struggling with their marriage. I kind of came across accidentally the pre-adoption version of Prepare-Enrich, and so that started just a journey of being able to walk alongside. Once I presented what Prepare-Enrich was to our leadership, they jumped on board and they were ready to implement. And so that was 2 years ago in March. And since then, we have administered Prepare-Enrich to about 800 families. And it's been a really helpful and useful tool that I want to be able to share with you guys today. All right, so basically today I'm going to give you an overview of what Prepare-Enrich is. And we're going to talk through some of that, and then we're going to talk about what's different about the adoption and foster care version, and specifically how we've used it here at Lifeline, because we've learned a lot of lessons over the last year, and we've learned a lot of things that are really great to do and some things that don't work as well. So here we go. All right, so just some general things to know about the Prepare-Enrich is that it's online couple assessment, which means that couples can access it from home and they're able to do it in the privacy of their home. It takes about a half hour, 45 minutes to complete the questions. And each couple, it's $35, and the couple is able to pay that directly to Prepare-Enrich. And so that fee doesn't come to us at all. It's something they can take care of on their own. And for what it is, it's a very reasonable price. And it's a strength-based approach. So it's an approach that builds on the strengths that the family already has and isn't just looking at their deficits, but some of the good things that they have to bring to the table. It's confidential, so while we know who they are when we're registering them and we are tracking a lot of different information just so for our own records, Prepare-Enrich doesn't see any other information except for the family's first names and their email address. And it provides immediate feedback. So for families who you're working with, say tomorrow, if they finish it that night, you can download their report right away and have that information right away. It's also based with a strong research background. It's been extremely well researched, validated across a number of different cultural backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, and with different family situations. And it's also customizable. So those are some things that we're going to learn more about. There's a lot of different customizations, and today we're specifically focusing on the adoption and foster care version, but there's a lot of other customizations that are possible as well. All right, so as we keep moving forward, some of the things that are specific to Prepare-Enrich, to the assessment, there's 10 core scales, and those 10 core scales include idealistic distortion, which is the ability to kind of see how the couple views their relationship and how idealistic they are with it. Do they kind of look at their relationship through rose-colored glasses, or are they more realistic about what's going on in their marriage? It assesses their communication skills, and basically with each of these things, it's looking at how they are feeling about their communication or conflict resolution, how satisfied they are within that, and areas that they're in agreement on, and areas where they have disagreement, or if there's an area that they agree on but they're agreeing on an unhealthy statement, then that shows up as well. And we'll talk more about that as we get to the standard report pages. But this gives you kind of just general things that are assessed in every report: conflict resolution, partner style and habits, their financial management. And so again, it's not looking at whether or not the way they manage their money is right or wrong, but it's how do they feel about how they're managing it, and are they in agreement in the way that they're approaching it. It also touches on leisure activities, sexuality and affection, family and friends, and roles and responsibilities, and spiritual beliefs. And all of this is kind of encapsulated into the larger, it's a systemic approach. So you've got the 10 core scales right there at the middle, and then you can see there's other things that Prepare-Enrich is able to pull in, namely the scope personality, which is based on the ocean model, or the big 5 model of personality, and that tells us a lot about how people are going to approach the adoption process in general, what they might be expecting from us as an agency, how they're going to receive some of the news we might need to share with them, and how are they going to respond to this child once they're in their home. It gives us a lot of wisdom and insight into those people. And then there's the relationship dynamics. So this is looking at things like assertiveness, self-confidence, avoidance, and also how much they feel controlled by their partner. I'm going to take just a second to stop sharing, and I'm going to do something because I'm hearing some feedback, and then we'll keep going. But you can see there's a lot of different components involved with Prepare-Enrich. Lots of different benefits and things that you can know right away that you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to know. All right. We're going to keep rocking and rolling. All right, so you see those relationship dynamics, and then it's also inside that couple map, and the couple map is based on FACE's research, or the circumplex model of marital and family, and that can be very enlightening too. There's been some other information that I've learned even outside of Prepare-Enrich that's been very helpful, and just understanding what families might be more likely for there to be things like sexual abuse involved with. And then outside of that is the family map. So you get to see the family of origin and what the family was like that they grew up in, and all of that within the larger cultural context. Alright, so a lot of that is just a quick overview. Other things that weren't necessarily highlighted in that, but that have been very useful, is that there's also a brief questionnaire that touches on abuse, abuse growing up, abuse in their adult relationships or lives, and then also things like unhealthy sexual activity or engaging in pornography. Lots of different aspects that it just kind of touches on and kind of screens for, and lets us know where we need to ask more questions. And so kind of moving into the adoption and foster care specific version, this in front of you is a standard report page. Now, Prepare-Enrich, for all of the things that we talked about a minute ago with the 10 core scales, each of those has one of these standard report pages assigned to it in the report. So this is specific to the adoption version. But just to give you a general guideline of what you're looking at the top you see the title. And then right underneath you see where it says adoption expectation. So it tells you the definition of what that page is looking at. And so for adoption expectations, it goes into measuring how realistic or unrealistic that each individual is about adoption and those challenges that come with it. So it gives you an idea of what you're looking at, and over here you see satisfaction levels with each individual. So you see Jack and Jill separately, and then you see how much they agree on healthy statements. So as you keep looking down at the bottom, what you might notice is that here they have two items that have been grouped with positive couple agreement. And basically what that's saying is that these are healthy statements that they agree on. Okay, so adopting a child will not change much about the way our family operates. That's negatively worded, but they're both disagreeing with it, so that is going to be viewed as more of a strength. The other one would be, I'm aware that the adoption process can often be difficult and frustrating. So those are, again, they're agreeing with that, so they're having some realistic expectations about what's to come. In the next section you see disagreement. So these are items where one is agreeing and one is disagreeing. And so That's pretty self-explanatory. And then there's an indecision category, and those would be for the ones that they're marking number 3 on. And the special focus is the areas where they both agree that this is probably something that's going to be a struggle for them. For example, adopting a child will bring us closer together as a couple. For an adoption professional, as we know, adoption can be really difficult, and so often it doesn't bring couples closer together, but it actually creates more wedges. And so this is, again, what that's getting at. So this is a special focus because they did both agree on it, but it's not necessarily a positive thing that they're agreeing on. So this is an area that we'd want to look at more. And this is pretty typical out of the assessments that we've given in the past 2 years. This is pretty typical, especially at the start of the adoption process. And as we use this, in no way are we attempting to screen out people, and we'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. But we're looking more at just how we can better prepare the couple. What are the areas that they need to learn more about or process through more? So there's 3 total adoption specific standard report pages. The foster care pages are very similar, so today I'm just going to show you the adoption ones. The foster care ones are almost identical. There's all of the adoption wording has been changed, and there's a couple of questions that are very specific to adoption that have been adjusted to be more relevant for foster care. But overall, it's very similar. So the second adoption specific scale is adoption considerations. And for this one, you can see this is looking at the range of pre-adoption issues that they need to discuss and kind of understand beforehand. And it's measuring their commitment and readiness to adopt a child, because the adoption process is very long and arduous. And actually adopting and having that child join your family is really just the beginning, because that's the beginning of a lot of other potential struggles. Here at Lifeline, we are involved with international, domestic, and domestic adoption both, and foster care. So each of those programs has their own challenges. Within international, every country has different challenges. So there's a whole lot that they have to be geared up for, no matter which track they're going on, because it's not easy. So with adoption considerations specifically, again, you've got that same satisfaction level. So you'll see on this one that Jack is pretty, scores very high in that, and they together, and so does Jill, and then together they agree on that. So that 80 is meaning that on 8 out of the 10 questions that are there's positive couple agreement, and again that means healthy agreement on healthy statements, if that makes sense. So if you'll see, there's questions relating to their commitment, making the adoption permanent, their financial ability, just a lot of different things that need to be considered moving forward. If you look at the bottom, this is pretty typical of things that people will show that they either disagree or have special focus for. Most people, especially with international adoption, haven't considered how contact with their child's birth family might impact them, because there's the assumption, of course, that there won't be, or that the birth family isn't known. But with today's day and age of technology, that is definitely becoming an increasing thing, where we see kids adopted internationally who do maintain some contact with birth families. So again, this is a great opportunity to bring that up and talk about that with those families. And at the bottom, infertility. And we know that infertility can do a lot when there's unresolved feelings and grief related to infertility. It can often be a barrier to attachment. So again, there's just a lot of doors that are open for us to bring up some things with those families. With adoptive parenting, this is the third one. And this is specific to parenting issues, okay, and how they plan to maintain balance in their marriage relationship once they do have this child in their care. And so you can read through, the being confident that they can provide a safe and positive environment for the child that they adopt, being willing to go to great lengths to provide for whatever special needs that child may have, confidence in their partner, and you can see so forth and so on. So within that, with the adoption foster care version, there's been a lot of benefits that we've been able to observe over the past 2 years. And again, we've learned a lot, and I'll talk about how we've implemented that and mistakes that we made early on and ways that we've gone about remedying those. But the benefits have been amazing. We've been able to customize every family's home study to them. So ideally, we like to have the assessment completed before the first home study visit. And a lot of the information contained in the assessment overlaps with what we would have covered in that first home study visit. So what it does is it allows our workers to be able to use their time a little better. And it can show them like areas that, okay, I don't need to spend as much time on this area, but hey, I can really focus a lot more of my time on this other area. So it lets them kind of know what they're getting into before they get there, and customize that family's home study. And then again, it's identifying areas to ask more about, so they know where they do need to spend more time. And it's addressing those issues that are specific to the couple. And it's building on strengths while also addressing those growth areas, both before they adopt and before they foster. So we can help a family see the strengths that they bring to it, but at the same time help them maybe be aware of pitfalls that they didn't know they needed to be aware of, and work through those, or prepare for that, or create a plan for those things before they ever have a child in their home. And we can never prepare for every eventuality, but it does give us a step in the right direction. And it identifies some high-risk couples. Prepare-Enrich, the assessment comes back with 5 different categories of couples that it puts married couples into, or committed couples into. And so there's, devitalized, harmonious, conventional, conflicted, and devitalized. And so when we see families who are in the lower 2, even sometimes 3 categories, then we know our level of intervention with that family might need to be a little more intense than it would with, say, a vitalized couple. But the bottom line is, when we're looking through this assessment, we're looking for things through the lens of adoption. And how are each of the things that we're seeing? How is this couple's personality? How are their marriage dynamics going to interact with the issues that this adopted child is going to bring into the home? One of the things that I've learned in the last couple of years is that, I believe it's in Dr. Foley's book, Post-Adoption Depression, that children who come from hard places, or the places that our kids are being adopted or fostered from, they have a much lower outcome when they're placed into families where there's marital distress. So while you might have a family who argues, but look at how well adjusted our children are, our biological children are, there's an easy way to say, look, that's awesome, and you guys have done a lot of things really well, but here's what we know, and we know that when this child's issue comes and mixes with the issues that you guys have already, that there's the potential for it to be really bad for everybody involved. And so it gives us a really great way to share a lot of that information in a non-confrontational way, and to hopefully help to deal with those things ahead of time. There have been some moments with couples where we've gone through and we see that they are what might be conflicted, which is toward the bottom. And when we start talking to them, we do the first exercise and share the results with them. What we find is that they really just lack skill and have no idea how to do the things that are good for a couple. And especially if they are coming without children, they haven't even understood why it might be an important thing for the future. So in those cases, we've been able to walk alongside and use the Prepare-Enrich curriculum to help give them the skills that they need so that they are able to be effective parents. And then there's also been moments when we've seen something concerning come through with the report, and we've dove into it more with the family, and they come to the conclusion, based on just the ways that we're talking with them and offering them more support, they come to the conclusion themselves that adoption or foster care might not be right for them at that point in time. Sometimes, we're able to find, because we're not everywhere and a lot of our families are all over the nation, so we're able to find another Prepare-Enrich trained therapist to work with them locally wherever they're at. But there's a lot of different ways that we can use this to help couples who need more without telling them, hey, no, you can't adopt, but by giving them the skills and the tools that they need to be able to be effective parents. So things that we've done and the way that we've implemented it. Basically, when we started this a couple years ago, I was looking at every Prepare-Enrich that came across my desk. But in the first year, I believe that we administered close to 500. And so obviously that very quickly wasn't possible for me to do. So we began to train more of our social workers in it and helped get more people on that team. And since then, we have decided that what works best for us is for all of our social workers to be trained and to be comfortable using at least some of the activities, especially the very first one. Now, it's important to hear, like, we don't encourage our social workers to be the counselor or therapist for these families, but what we want them to do is to feel competent in reading the report, understanding what issues this family might have, and feel equipped to be able to find them the resources that they need. And that looks differently depending on every situation. So we have, we're licensed in about 12 states. So our in-state workers are often have less issues than our out-of-state. One of the things that's been challenging for our workers is those families that don't live in one of our states and have another agency doing their home study. And how do we use that then? And so there's been a few things that we figured out. Some social workers are a lot more comfortable handling and using this tool than others. And some are just like, this is beyond me. So in a lot of times, sometimes with those out-of-state families, what that might mean is having a phone call with them to talk through their results. If it's, depending on what their results say, if it's a family that's a little bit healthier, then we don't have as much concerns and don't want to necessarily hit that too hard. But with the families that we do have significant concerns with, then that might mean pairing them with a local Prepare-Enrich facilitator. The other thing that we've done over the last couple of years is we've taken the Prepare-Enrich facilitator report and we've created prompts within our home study of when the social worker should discuss those things with the family, so that it becomes a natural way to look over these results instead of a separate process. Some of the questions and concerns that the workers here have had is just, man, this is one more thing and I already have way too much to do. And what we found is that, yes, it's a little bit more on the front end when you're first learning it, but as you get more comfortable with it, it actually will save you some time in the long run. And so that's kind of the journey that we've taken. It's now one of those things that we feel is very invaluable and are so grateful for. And it's just been very helpful for us to know how to best train our families. So that is basically it. Wanted to make sure that we had some time today for some questions. And so there's a couple different ways that we can take questions, and also want to let you know, so that if any of you do need to go, that there will be an email coming to you from Prepare-Enrich within the next couple of days, and that will have a discount code for you, so that if you do decide that this is something you want to pursue, you'll have a way to access that training for a little bit less, and you'll get more information about that to come. And it may be that there are some questions that come up later, and that's okay too. You guys can feel free to email me. My email address is Angela, ANGELA, .mains, MAINS, @lifelinechild.org. And I'd love to answer any questions that may occur to you down the road. And I hope that this makes sense, because one of the hopes that I have is that as we all can begin to use tools like this, that it will help us to be able to partner when we do have clients that overlap, as we do sometimes with contract home studies. And so please let me know if there's any questions that I might be able to answer for you. And again, my email address is Angela, Angela, .mains, MAINS, @lifelinechild.org.